Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hey guys, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. How are you guys doing? I hope everybody's doing well. Boy, has it been a week for me, I got to tell you. I have a really cool guest today, Tammy Young, and she is a psychic medium and a Reiki master, and she's going to join me in just a few minutes. So, this last week, let's see, last week I did my show in bed, literally sick as a dog and I'm still recovering. I got the flu. Apparently, I had like a 103 fever for like 5 days. It was pretty bad. But I'm feeling better, still a little congested, but holy cow, I haven't had the flu and I don't even know how long. I haven't been this sick in over a decade. So, I know it's going around. A lot of people are sick right now. So, please take care of yourself. Lots of fluids, lots of rest. It just seems like you gotta let it go through your body. It hasn't been fun. I came back from New Orleans last Monday and I felt myself getting sick on the plane. I was wearing a mask, but I felt myself getting sick and I said, "Oh no." And sure as heck, it knocked me for a loop. But thankfully I left on Monday and not Tuesday because we would have gotten snowed in. I mean, it would have been beautiful to see, but it would have been useless for me. I would have been sick and we would have been stuck. So just want everybody out there. There's like 4 viruses going around. Take care of yourselves. Self care is so important. To my regulars, I want to give you a big shout out. Thank you so much for listening to me each week. I so appreciate you. You have no idea. I get emails, I get your postcards. I'm just thrilled. So thank you so much. If you're joining me for the first time, I want to say welcome. So what we do is we record the show live. So if you're listening right now, it is January 29th, 2005 at 4:05 or 4:06 p.m. Eastern Time. But what we do is we take each show and we put it on the archives on Om Times Radio in the archives. I take each show and I put it on postcardstotheuniverse.com. There, of course, is a description on every show. So if you like the show and you want to listen to some other guests that I've talked to, please, you can find them there. And of course, you can always find them on your favorite podcasting platform, whatever it is you use. A little bit about me if you are listening for the first time. I'm a photographer. I'm an artist. I'm an author. I have a book titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And what I do is I have people create a manifesting postcard, kind of like a vision board, but sort of a small one. They send it to me, or I'll do it in a workshop. And I photograph their postcard. And when their manifestation that was on the postcard shows up in their reality, I share their stories. And the book has 30 of those postcards and stories in it, and it was so great. It was so fun creating it. It's already been out 5 years. I cannot even believe how fast the last 5 years have gone by. I'm constantly taking postcards. So if you want to create a manifesting postcard, they're so much fun to make. Please do. You can send it to me. If you go to postcardstotheuniverse.com, you'll see how to create a postcard and the address to send it. So I really, really hope you do. I live in an artist community and we have a 3-story gallery in the middle of our community. And I am the curator this month. So even while sick, thankfully I've had help, we have hung a show of 27 artists on the 3 stories. And I have my postcards on the wall and I'm so excited. We're having a big event February 21st and it's going to be a wonderful show. It's like I haven't done a show since before COVID. So I'm really, really excited. I guess better to be sick now than on the 21st, which is the big event. So if you're local and in South Florida and you want to come, let me know and I'll give you all the information. Okay. So let me get to my guest today Tammy Young. Tammy Young is a dedicated psychic medium and a Reiki master. She serves as a spiritual advisor who helps connect the bereaved with their departed loved ones. With expertise in guiding clients through health, relationships, and career challenges, Tammy brings a holistic approach to her practice. Her unique journey began as an electrical engineer at Motorola, where she worked for a decade before a personal tragedy shifted her path. The stillbirth of Tammy's child profoundly altered her life, prompting a quest for answers that led her to explore new philosophies and spiritual practices. This transformative experience opened her to the world of spirit and deepened her relationship with God. Embracing her spiritual side, Tammy's abilities as a medium flourished, and she continues to seek and share spiritual insights today. Her book, Afterlife Bonds: How Spirit Communication Turned My Grief into a Journey of Joy. Tammy invites readers to navigate the challenging path of grief and discover profound connections with loved ones beyond the physical realm. Explore the afterlife to heal from loss and embrace spiritual connections to communicate with loved ones on the other side. If you want to find out more about Tammy, you can go to her website. It's tammyyoungmedium.com. Welcome, Tammy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Wow.
Oh, me too. This thing knocked me on my ass. Oh my god. Yesterday we were hanging and finishing up hanging. I have 3 other curators, so I'm not the only curator. Thank God, cuz I would have been like, I can't hang this show. I'm never going to make it. It's been a
Oh,
lot, but it's good. It's good. I'm feeling better. So that's the most important thing. So, Tammy, your background is super interesting. How did going yeah, right? How did going from being an electrical engineer at Motorola to all of a sudden your mediumship opened? It was the death of your child? I mean, I can't even imagine the grief that that must have been. But you want to share a little bit your story with us?
yeah. I mean, I think that's a great question because I know when you look at my bio, you're thinking, what the heck is going on here? And the interesting connection between all of that really is energy, our own personal energy. And I think that my education as an engineer, going to school and practicing that, I just really learned a lot about electricity and how things will happen around you that you can't even see. So there is
Hmm.
this really strange connection there, believe it or not, between that electrical engineering and then the mediumship. But you're right. It really was the death of a child. For me, it was 20 weeks pregnant, and that
Mm,
really just it really changed my life. It really brought me to a different place that I was like didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do, didn't know what was
mhm,
next. That took me to that place of questioning, and it was really. I think it was probably at this point, it's probably been 20 years since that happened, more like 26. But
mhm,
yeah, it's been a journey, and it felt sort of gradual and okay to leave this very profound profession of engineering and moving into something that maybe I couldn't see or understand, but I sure knew it was here and I felt it. So it was,
mhm.
I don't know, kind of something I just followed my intuition, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, that's usually what happens. Usually a tragedy will happen and it brings us to our knees and we start questioning, right? And we go within and we're
Yeah.
grieving and we're dealing with the shock to our nervous system from what happened. And we start questioning and maybe becoming more open to hearing answers coming to us from spirit, right? And it makes sense that, like we know electricity works, right? I mean, we turn on our light, we see it, but we don't see how it travels, right? We know
Right.
sound travels, we know light travels. So why isn't it that consciousness? also travels, and some of us are tuned into it or more tuned into it than others. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've had that question so much. I've asked myself, like, what the heck is going on? And I do
Right.
believe that there's just like there's some other ability that all of us have to tune into this consciousness level, wavelengths, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah. No, I mean it. Yeah, and I'm not surprised that it took a situation for you to become tuned in. So the spirit of the child that you lost, you can connect and speak with that spirit on the other side, like anytime you want to. Is that
Well,
how it is that how it works for you, or I'll let
so
you just tell me.
it's a very interesting thing that nobody's asked me this before, but I have this feeling.
Mhm.
Sylvia Brown wrote a bunch of books. In
I
one of her
remember I
books,
used to read Sylvia. I used to read Sylvia Brown.
yes,
Yeah, I know Sylvia.
yes,
Yeah.
right? So that was
Mhm.
one of the first types of books I was reading after the loss of my baby Zoe. And for me, I really picked up on the idea that spirit is really just there waiting for the body to be formed and everything. And then, spirit and body come together and the baby's born.
Mhm.
So one
Right.
of the things that Sylvia talked about was when the body doesn't work out, that
Mhm.
spirit is first up for the next body the next time you get pregnant. And
Yeah.
I did get pregnant um, surprisingly very quickly after the loss of Zoe. And
Mm.
so my feeling is and I had a son in place of a girl. So I know this is really sounding a
No, I
little
believe
weird.
you. I believe you.
Yeah,
I know it. I
that
believe you.
same spirit, that
Mhm.
same spirit has come through as a boy instead of a girl. So there's not this feeling about the
Okay.
loss of that spirit, right?
Mhm.
But it really, for me, years later, was another sort of primary situation that came up that really um, made me work in this area of psychic mediumship even more than I was. Because at
Mhm.
that time, I began to move forward and take classes and try to figure out, because I was having intuitive hits. There were psychic things going on. So I was taking classes and things like that to understand it. And then
Mhm.
eventually I began to take on clients.
Mm. Yeah, I totally can see that, and I believe in that. I lost my sister 2.5 years ago. She was special needs, and I talk to her every day. And it started with meditation maybe over 6 months ago. And she comes every day in my meditation. So we have conversations all the time. So I feel it feels real to me. I go to my place, my little forest area. She shows up. We have a She's there. I can feel her. A beautiful connection. And I tell my mom to try to do this because of course, as a mother, my mom has the hardest time with the loss of her daughter.
Yeah.
And so, she loves hearing about that. But I got dowsing rods and I let my mom ask my sister Tony questions. And the dowsing rods would move to the answer yes or no, and which I thought was really kind of cool. So I think that,
Yeah.
yes, I think we can all connect. We just have to practice and be open to it. So, and I'm not surprised that your originally was going to be the daughter came through to your son, because I always feel like my niece would have been born through me, but I made the decision not to have children.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's how I feel, because we're so tight connected spiritually and on like soul to soul level. I really do. I think she said,
Yeah.
"Well, you're not going to do it, so I'm just going to go through my other sister." Mhm. Yeah.
I, but I totally agree with that. I think spirit is just so much stronger. We don't always give them the benefit of sort of understanding, because we don't
Mhm.
understand all of that. But, what
Right.
a beautiful thing to know that there's a spirit that wants to be there with you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we travel in soul groups, right?
Yeah.
So your soul group. So when you are communicating for somebody who is going through a loss, what does it look like? How does that work with you? How do you do it? Because I know every medium's different.
Yes, I agree. And when I first started taking classes and getting into circles with other mediums and we were reading each other, I didn't know that. I thought everybody was reading the same way I was. But
Mm.
for me, my clairvoyance is the strongest. So usually spirit will show up and I can see them. And just
Mm.
through like what their clothes are, maybe what their face looks like, sometimes they'll show me the background. And sometimes they expand into like, this is what I'm doing today. This is my house. It just really starts from, for me, seeing them. And then there's that initial connection. Then that moves into a lot of like feeling and me trying to kind of ask them. I ask them a few questions evidentially so that we can connect with the person who's come for a reading. And once we
Sure.
know, yep, that's, Uncle George, then we move forward into, for me, I move into, George, what would you like to say? What brought you here today? That kind of situation, and
Mhm.
allow spirit to really expand on, it can be messages, gifts, it can be feelings that they want to share, something left behind, um, all kinds of just beautiful information. But for me, it's using all those clairs, those clairvoyants, and things like that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, using the clairs. And I'm sure somebody listening who is grieving right now, and really, really wants, because what we really want is we want to know that our connection with them lasts forever and that they haven't really, they're not gone from our life, right? So having
Yes,
kind of a confirmation from somebody who's practiced connecting with spirit has to be so healing for your clients.
yes. And I have to tell you, it is so healing for me as a medium.
Mhm.
The idea that I can act as a go between spirit and, someone that has come to me for a reading is every time I do a reading, it's just amazing to me. The feeling is good and just the awareness, what our world truly is, even though we don't see that. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's almost always there's a reason that someone has come for a sitting, wanting to know, all kinds of things. But I always want to make sure that the messages that are coming through are really positive, and
Mhm.
really, really healing for the sitter because that's the reason they came, right? They just want to know
Yeah.
if everything's okay. And the beauty is,
Yeah.
it is okay.
Yeah, that's what we all want to know. That's what we all want to know. Like, is my loved one happy? Are they okay? Especially if there was a tragedy, they died tragically or they dealt with a long illness, are they okay? Where are they? Like you want to see them. Do you have some of your clients, when you're talking to them, tell you they have had their own experiences and maybe didn't, weren't sure what it was? Like, I've heard stories where people say, my dad used to smoke a pipe, and every once in a while I'll smell it, and it's like it makes me feel like he's here. Do you have a lot of clients that come to you that have had their own experiences?
Always, always. And if they
Mhm.
don't bring that up, now that I've written this book, I will ask them, do you feel like you have had experiences with your loved one? And they will always, always be like, well, maybe it doesn't mean anything, but,
Mhm.
whether it's the birds or coins or
Mhm.
that smell of a pipe or something moving that was something they knew that their mother enjoyed, things in the kitchen or on the mantle. Um, it's just really interesting how much we doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
And in reality, no, you are what you're feeling is real. And you find out that the more that you lean into that, you know, as you've done, and just, you know, whether you want to work on your abilities by sitting in meditation or you just start talking to spirit that you believe is there. It's all
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah. I think so too. Do you get do you get spirits bothering you all the time now? Like I always ask mediums that. Like I feel like once they know that there's a human on earth that can tap into them, like you're like a beacon over there, or they're like, "Oh, she could go," and they don't leave you alone. Is that true or no?
For me personally, I don't have them bothering me a lot, except right when I'm going to sleep, right as you drift off, as I drift off, I will have people like say my name, yell my name, ask me a
Mm,
question, just, all kinds of stuff. And I do think that that's funny. And so, I mean, I think it's funny. I don't, other people might
yeah.
be bothered by it, but I
Well,
used
some
to,
people might be terrified if they're trying to go to
oh,
sleep and it's dark and you're hearing somebody screaming your name. You'd be like, "What is that?"
well, what was so funny is when this very first started, I realized that like there was something coming back at me. Um,
Mhm.
I I this is so funny. I would go to bed at night and my little dog would be at the very end of the bed and I would
Mhm.
wake up out of a very sound sleep because someone rang my doorbell. And I thought, "Oh my gosh." And this happened night after night.
Oh
And
my
I
god.
would like be up and standing walking towards the front door. And there were so many times I opened the door or I looked out the glass, there was nothing there. And I thought, what I thought was, oh, these must be neighborhood kids that are just doing the
Mhm.
ding dong ditch thing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, this went on for a while. And finally I realized, wait a minute, my dog never wakes up. My dog doesn't jump up and run to the door.
And bark, which normally he would, of course, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
always. So
Mm.
I realized, that this was going on. So basically, I asked my guides to please stop doing that. And if they had something to say, please come through in meditation rather than,
Mhm.
this sort of scary scenario that was going on. And sure enough, it changed. And during morning meditation,
Mhm.
I was prepared for that. Routinely had
Yeah.
people show up, which is fine. But
Right.
it's funny at that point. I kind of didn't know what to do about that, other than kind of like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that many mediums, once that gift really opens, they have to set like strong boundaries with the other side. Like, no, you can't come and bother me when I'm sleeping. No, you can't come in the bathroom with me. Like,
Yeah,
like just you wait until I'm in my space and then I invite you in, which it's just so funny to me that that happens to some people like that because I don't feel like I'm necessarily a medium in the sense that other spirits come to me, but I do know that I've invited my sister and she comes to me. So that's just where I'm at now,
yeah,
right now. I don't know if I'm meant to explore that more, but I'm comfortable where I am right now, but I think we all have that ability. And if we're
yeah.
just open to it, don't you think?
I completely believe that. And that's why in my book, as I go through this scenario that occurs later in my life, I
Hmm.
pretty much put in there all these different steps because if you're in grief and you pick up a book, maybe my book, I don't want to
Hmm.
take you through a really sad story without some kind of, give back. Like if you're going through this, let's do some meditation. Hey, let's do some journaling. And hey, here's some other ways to try to connect. So I do believe that. I think that we all have that sensing system. It's just how much
Hmm.
we want to work on it or use it.
Yeah. And you call it an after death communication, an ADC, right? Did you coin that?
Yes.
Because this is the first time I've ever heard that
Oh,
ADC. Yeah.
actually, that term came out of someone who did their PhD thesis
Hmm.
um, in Denton, Texas. And
Okay.
this person use that term, but they had gathered together information over like 150 years of
Oh, wow.
people and asking them, did, after death communication occurred in what way for you? And then kind of just found all these benefits. And I just love that term, like we do communicate even after we die. And I just thought that was a great way to, make it a little less spooky, I think.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because let's say you're thinking of a loved one and then you find a feather. That would be a
Right?
communication, right? As you know
Yeah.
that it came like a feather that was, or you saw a certain butterfly that reminded you of your mom or something, like that is a communication. It may not be talking to the person, but that's a form of communication. So it makes a lot of sense to me that that's what they would term it. Although I never, and I've had other mediums on, I've talked to, read a lot of books about it. I've never heard that term before, but I like that too. And I don't think it's only accessible to mediums. I think we've all experienced that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So have you had um anybody who's told you something like a really interesting story of an experience they've had from a client?
I'm trying to think, I haven't had so much like their experience as
Mhm.
my, my own experience between the
Mhm.
time that someone will sign up for a reading and then the
Okay.
morning of that reading. Um,
Oh, that makes
yeah,
sense.
because yeah, that's
They know
sort of
you're
another.
coming. They're coming to you now. So then you have been made on the other side. I
Yeah,
didn't say that. Right. Right. Oh, I want to hear about that. Okay. I just looked at the time though, and I see that we're ready for our break. So let's take our commercial break now. And then I want to hear about some of your experiences. Stay tuned, everybody. And we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, Creating the Life You Crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, Creating the Life You Crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Guys, and welcome welcome back. If you're just joining me, I have psychic medium Tammy Young with me, and her book is titled Afterlife Bonds: How Spirit Communication Turned My Grief into a Journey of Joy. So, Tammy, before the break, we were talking about some interesting things that happen, and you said when a client makes an appointment with you, and certain things start to happen. Can you share a
Yeah.
little bit? Yeah, love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, people make an appointment, and one of the things I might ask is, just give me generally an idea, like who you're asking to connect with or whatever. They might
Hmm.
say, oh, a loved one, or it might be like mom or whatever,
Okay,
right? So I don't really know anything past
of
that.
course.
And so usually the morning of the reading, they show up. And honestly, I'm okay with that. But when they show up, I'm like, well, if you're going to give me information, you can give me one or two pieces of information, but we need to wait until that person either comes in the front door or they
Hmm.
actually show up on Zoom. Like, okay, I know that you're here, but we really want to talk with the person when they get here. But
Sure.
during that little time period, I've had them, like, one lady had me, like, I felt like I needed to play the piano, like my fingers were doing the thing on the counter. And I thought that's
Mm.
so weird. And so when the person came and we were doing the reading, I said, now, do you have anybody who plays the piano, or did this particular person we are talking about play the piano? Oh yes, she was a piano teacher. Oh, okay.
Mm.
Right. So they
Right.
they will show me things. It's not always clairvoyantly. It could be like how I feel. Um,
Hmm.
Another person really wanted to connect with dad. And during the reading, I had my middle finger on my left hand was so itchy. And I was just scratching and scratching and scratching. And finally, I just stopped and I said to her, I just don't know why my finger is so itchy. And the whole time she had her hand over the other hand of her. And she pulled her hand back and she showed me that she had a ring on that finger that belonged to her dad. So this was
Oh,
spirit
yeah.
way, right, of calling
Hmm.
out, say something so that she will acknowledge. And she said, well, I kind of wanted to test you a little bit. And so this is
Of
how I
course.
did it. And I'm like, okay, I don't really care for the testing, but I'm glad that
Right.
this occurred.
Right.
But
That makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah. Because people
yeah,
want to so believe it. So when they get something that nobody could have known, and as a confirmation, it makes them feel like, okay, yeah, I'm really talking, I'm connecting with my
yeah,
my
we're
dad
really,
or mom, or yeah,
yeah.
amazing.
And it's really funny, but what I've also learned, and my book is about the passing of a brother, of one
Okay.
of my brother. And
Hmm.
one thing that I always thought before he passed, I said, okay, if you're going to pass to the other side, like let's come up with a symbol. And he had a
Mm.
turtle, this massive tortoise. I said,
Okay.
so if I get a reading from, one of these other mediums that are in my group and they say anything about a turtle, I'm going to know it's you. Right. So I thought, I
Hmm.
kept saying that to him. Well, to this day, right, it's now been 4 years. He comes through all the time. He's actually one of my guides, but there are no turtles to be found. Like, that is not what he cares to have himself symbolized with. So
So no
even though
turtles?
no turtles, he has one phrase that he always comes through with.
Uh
Um,
huh.
that it's a man. This man has passed of something unexpected. It's always phrased that way.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah.
what does he
So
mean by that? Does that mean that I'm here? Is him saying I'm here? Is that his way of announcing that he's here, or is he
yeah,
talking about somebody else? That's his way of announcing he's there. Okay.
yeah, that's his way. So, well, I will say with the people that I work with, traditionally, we will come through with, maybe it's 5 to 10 pieces of evidence. So
Mhm.
when people are starting with me and that you're bringing through evidence, that would be one of the pieces. And what's interesting is that piece of
Mm.
information is almost always the first piece. It's not like,
Interesting.
oh, he looks like this, or, he did this for a job, or he felt like this. It's always, I have a man here and he passed of something unexpected.
Mm, okay, I
So, yeah,
understand. Interesting.
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
going to ask you what inspired you to write the book Afterlife Bonds. So it was your brother's passing that inspired you.
Yes, and it's a really wild story. It is a wild story, but fundamentally, or in summary,
Hmm.
I had a brother that I didn't know I had. And
Oh,
in 2019, a lady gave me a reading while I was in a class, and
okay.
she said, "Hey, there's someone out there." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." And
Right.
then my brother shows up in 2020, right? So it's, 6 months later, he shows up, and I'm like, "Oh." So, yeah, so he was only in my life for 6 months before he passed of
Oh,
something
wow.
unexpected. Yeah.
Mm,
So it was really amazing to me. It was a
yeah.
pandemic, and here's this
Hmm.
situation, and the only thing that I knew is that I needed to go and be with him before he passed, so that
Hmm.
his energetic signature and mine would recognize each other. And I did, and I'm so
Wow.
grateful to have, that day, those hours with him. um,
Hmm.
and then immediately he shows up. So um, he even like did some out of body things prior to his passing. So,
Wow.
there's just a lot of amazing things that happen once I guess once I had that reading from a psychic, I all of a
Hmm.
sudden started having dreams, which I'd never had before. So a lot of things go on in this book that were firsts for me. And
Yeah.
yeah,
No, that's a lovely story. That's a lot. You were meant to connect. That's why the psychic, and then he
yeah.
came into your life and you got to know him a little bit on the earthly plane. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was meant to be one of your guides, right? So it's awesome that you actually know one of your guides. You knew them in the physical form. Can you share a little bit with us some of the you know, the j the inspiring or touching stories and things that you witnessed helping somebody connect with a loved one?
Yes, I have a favorite story of a friend of mine, and I think
Okay.
within 2 years, she lost her mother and her father. And
Mm,
a lot of it all happened so quickly, and she's always so busy. There, after her mother passed, we did a reading together, and of course, her mother was so grateful for everything she had done for her family, and she knew that.
mm,
And then once her
mhm,
dad passed, there was another reading. But then there was a period of time, almost a year later, when the estate was finally settled, and she had made some decisions about the family, or about the way
mhm,
the estate would be settled. And she really wanted to know if her parents were okay with some of the decisions she'd made.
mhm,
Um, and it was the most beautiful thing. They were in the room as I was preparing for my friend to come, and I shared all those little things. When my friend showed up, I said, "You know what? Your mother, I realized there was going to be more people here in the room than we had chairs for." And I could hear your mother asking me, "Where am I going to sit?" So I went out and got an extra chair for her. And my friend says that's exactly what she would have said. And the whole scenario about her father saying a
mhm,
few things, but mom stepping in and really telling her what her daughter needed to know. And then when she was done, mom says, "We're done, we're out." And I showed my friend, I said, "She is like done." And she said, "That's my mom." Yep. So I know that those really small, like personal things that people
mhm,
do, that sort
mhm.
of energetic signature shows other people that, that's really you, right?
Yeah. That's a
So,
good way to describe it, an energetic signature. Mhm. Right, because
yeah,
we're all so
whether
different.
whether it's words you used or things that you did or the way that you would have normally acted, those things come through in a reading. And I think that for people that have readings, you should be able to tell, through the evidence and what's going on in the reading that your loved one is there.
Yeah.
Just feel
Have you
like,
ever had an experience where somebody who lost somebody, but the person who died without, they didn't get to resolve, let's say, a conflict or a hurt, and they wanted to connect with somebody after that person passed to see if there could be some, healing there or forgiveness. Have you ever had any of those experiences with your clients?
I have. And for me, many times, when person maybe has died unexpectedly, maybe sometimes accidentally or by their own hand,
Mhm.
when those spirits step forward to speak, they're going to talk with me first or come to me. So I will see them either head bowed or their hat.
Mm.
I see the term hat in hand, the
Mhm.
apology, right? And so when they come forward in the beginning with that kind of a presence, I know right away that
Mm.
there is a situation here that they're apologizing for or wanting to resolve because they've come, right? They haven't,
Mhm.
backed away. They've come forward to have those messages given. And many times it's just the apology about, the fact that someone has passed. Sometimes it's an accident and it's not even expected, you know?
Mm.
But I think the biggest thing is for us in this world to understand that spirit didn't just pass and that's it. I mean, there's feelings around that and they want them
Right.
resolved. Many times they'll come back and let you know, like, they're okay, but they really want you to be okay. And
Mhm.
messages of love and apologies about what happened is generally what I see that there.
Yeah, that's got to be very healing if you've lost somebody and a conflict wasn't resolved. You know what I mean? And now you feel like you'll never get the opportunity. So that's got to be
Yeah.
very, very healing. So what
Yeah.
what kind of insights and messages do you hope people will get from your book, Afterlife Bonds? Like, what do you want your book to be able to help those of us who are still living and having a hard time dealing with the loss of a loved one?
So I think there's multiple things. I would love for you to read my journey to know
Mhm.
how unexpected it was for me. And I would say, like, even as a medium, I, kind of had an idea what this field, what goes on, what the field of this
Mhm.
is. But some of the things that happen, just like with anybody out there, like, things could happen that's a little past what you thought it was going to be, or it could be a little different than you thought. But I think grounding yourself in that is really important, right? Ground yourself
Mhm.
and just let that be part of your story, but allow your story to unfold. Like, whichever direction you need to go with that sadness,
Mhm.
you know, release that, and try to move forward. And for my book, I want to show you a story, a remarkable story, I think, from sort of beginning to, years past. In the back of
Mhm.
the book, I went to a medium in the Netherlands, and I asked him to do a reading for me from my brother Matt, and we
Okay.
did it twice. The first time, Matt turned around and talked about his life, and it was really remarkable. He also, and the second time, came through and talked about how he felt about me, and
Mhm.
there was so much more in this book than we think, as far as spirit and the fact that our life doesn't end.
Mhm.
There's just so much more. So I want people to understand that, like, what we see here is not all there is, but as you work your way through the book, there are little things to try. Like, if you're not sure what maybe you're intuitively led to, try
Mhm.
a couple of things, right? I think starting with meditation And journaling is a great way to get your sort of your intuitive juices going. Then you
Mhm.
begin to notice things. You begin to be a little more open about those things going on around you. And for me, as an engineer, I don't want to minimize anything that's happened. So if it's happened in meditation and suddenly I'm seeing that connection out here, I'm going to say in the real world, there's
Mhm.
something going on there, right? There's some kind of connection that you're making. I don't want you to deny that. I want you to have it on paper so that you can go back and prove to yourself, I do have this intuition, I have a connection of some kind, and continuing to explore that. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping
Well,
for,
no, I
expansion.
love that. So because you have actual practical for you guys listening, she has practical exercises in her book that help us learn how to develop our intuitive abilities because we're all intuitive, but many of us shut that down, right? We shut our intuition down. We don't trust it. And I'm sure anybody listening, the people that listen to my show, most likely definitely listen to their intuition, right? But many of us, when you've had an experience and your gut already told you that don't trust that person, don't
Yeah.
trust that situation, and we ignore it. That was our psychic intuition speaking to us, our higher self, whatever, your guides, and we don't listen. So I love that you're helping us practice how to trust our own intuition and tap into that, which is great because it's like anything else. We need homework. We need homework to learn how to do it.
Well,
So,
I was motivated to do that because I had a particular relative that was very close to my brother, and
mhm,
I saw her struggle so much with this whole process of death, and I just thought, you know, I I wish I could help more, and I just
yeah.
felt like maybe if there was a book out there, for anyone that was going through this. And I did have a client actually from the East Coast. We did a reading, and at the end of the reading, she said to me, and she had lost someone through an accident, and she said to me, I got your book not very long after this incident had happened and she had lost her loved one. And she said, you know what the book allowed me to do? I got to go through it slowly as I wanted to go through it, and I could do the
Mhm.
exercises as I wanted to or didn't want to do them. And she said it just brought me back around to a very different place. And then she got a reading from me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of her.
Yeah. No, it's difficult. We're complicated humans, right? We're very complicated and we struggle a lot because we get in our own way. So, what advice would you give to like a listener who maybe knows they have intuitive gifts and insights, but they're struggling with it, they're afraid of it, maybe they have been told stories through their own upbringing, that puts fear in it, like it's something that's not of God. We've all heard that kind of stuff. So what would you tell people who are struggling? Like they know that they could connect, but they're just struggling with it.
Yeah, I think it for me, I think when you meditating and writing in that journal, that really is proving to yourself that this is a thing, right? I think
Mm,
that once you're in a position that you can sort of reach out a little farther, taking some kind of a beginning course on intuition or maybe a psychic course, or just
mm,
begin to reach a little farther, a little at a time. There was a period of time where I would take a course like once a year. Then it became once
mm,
every 6 months. And then, but that was over years. And I would just say,
sure.
try to expand when you feel like you're ready for the next step.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of us we hold ourselves back, right? We
Yes.
have all these stories. We tell ourselves all these stories, and If it's something that interests you and you already feel like kind of naturally have that, like I know somebody who she's afraid of it, but she has prophetic dreams and it scares her. She doesn't like having it. And I always tell her to trust it. There's a reason you're having this experience, right? So maybe trust it. But of course, people have to come to that on their own.
Mm.
So, what does your
See,
family say about all the work that you're doing in your book and, your experiences? What do they say?
well, my parents have passed, but
Hmm.
I have a brother who's also an engineer, and he's come around, and he's probably one of my biggest supporters. But
Love
I,
that.
we're a family of engineers, so I have two sons who are
Uh
both
huh.
engineers, and yeah,
All science
they
based. Love it.
right?
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
have grown up with this, right?
Yeah.
So they've seen it in action. And,
Mhm.
one of my sons, we had gone to a wedding, and my son, like, really wanted to get a summer job. And at that wedding, there was a connection made for him. And so he ended up with a summer job exactly where he needed to be. And he was just so excited. He's like, "Oh, Mom, I know the reason we went to that wedding. It was because of this connection." And I thought, "Oh, my job is done here because you are now looking at me,
Right.
telling me what the connection is."
No, that's great. I love the fact because I imagine if you're very science in your based in your thought process, it may be a little harder to grasp things that you can't necessarily explain, right? So I love the fact that the boys are open to that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't even get a chance to talk about the Reiki part of what you do also. So let's just share a little bit about that. How did you, or what made you want to get into doing Reiki and energy healing?
So I have to tell you, one of my friends who was a medium, who I had known for a couple of years, um, I talked to him a few times, and he had noticed this. In the beginning, when I would do a reading, I would like
Hmm.
have so much energy that spirit would show up, and I would burst into tears because I didn't know what to do with all that energy.
Mm.
I just didn't know. And he's like,
Hmm.
"I keep getting this message. You're supposed to go take a Reiki class. You're supposed to go take a." So I did. And so now I'm a Reiki master. But now
Hmm.
I feel like I have a much better understanding of what that energy feels like when spirit shows up. I'm not overwhelmed by it.
Mm,
And I
okay.
know when they're here, right? So that was the point of the Reiki, was really for me to learn, what does that feel like, and how am I going to channel that by calming down enough and not just ruining a reading but by crying all the way through it.
So really it was for you to be able to
Yeah,
harness your own energy that was overwhelming. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that makes sense. I can imagine it must be a little overwhelming when you have someone sitting in front of you and they may be in tears, and then you have spirit coming from the other side to connect with them, and it's emotional,
yeah,
because the work that you do is very emotional. We're not talking about, like really like happy go lucky. Not that it's not happy, I don't mean that, but light and happy go lucky and easy breezy. This is deep work.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think that part of all of that is learning to, as a medium, sit in the middle, right? And
Mhm.
being able to give those messages and not being as caught up in the emotion, which I completely was, because that was so weird. That was so different for me. It was so strong.
Mhm.
And now it's a very much a better understanding about flow, allowing it to flow through you, but not holding on to it or keeping it with you, but allowing it to pass through you.
Yeah.
And that was pivotal for me. I had actually gone to a class one time, and I didn't expect to do this, but had to stand up in front of 50 other mediums and give a reading. And
Wow.
I did that, but I started to cry. And the lady that was showing us said, hey, if you do this, you're really going to destroy, what you're trying, who's coming through. And I said, okay, and so I did that. I did that little harness thing, but that's when I went to do the Reiki class. I said, if I could actually stand up in front of people, I didn't think I could do that. But then to ruin that kind of amazing message by crying through it, that's not good. So, there's a lot to be said about Reiki. Good stuff.
Yeah, Reiki is great stuff. So we only have a minute left. Is there anything that you would like anybody to know? And what should individuals be aware of when they're like, are there signs that we should be aware of if we're trying to connect from a loved one that seem to be universal?
Yeah, I think the beauty of a sign that your loved one is
Hmm.
giving you is because you understand it. I mean, there are
Okay.
things like whether it's birds or coins or those kinds of
Hmm.
things. I think
Yeah.
noticing a coincidence, and then there may be a sign that is very directed between you and them. I
That.
think that's
Well,
what they're going to first.
beautiful. Thank you, Tammy. It was such a pleasure talking to you today. I really appreciate it. And guys, I hope you'll reach out to Tammy and check out her book, Afterlife Bonds. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave, and wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.